brutal and sadistic crime lord. Penguin's origin explored. Oswald Chesterfield Cobblepot, popularly known as the Penguin, is one of Gotham City's most notorious supervillains and as a result, an enemy of Batman. He is also exceedingly popular with the audience due to his intense backstory and exciting arcs. The rich, sophisticated, and intelligent criminal mastermind was introduced by the artist Bob Kane and writer Bill Finger in Detective Comics number 58. In December 1941, he puts up the front of Oswald Cobblepot, a gentleman. Underneath this facade, he is a vengeful and power-hungry criminal, driven by rage. Initially, he was characterized by his love of ornithology and umbrellas fitted with technology. Later, he went on to become the manager of a popular nightclub called Iceberg Lounge, where he started to hide his illegal money. Basically, he uses it as a front for money laundering. His crimes are slimy, and he isn't afraid of any deed, no matter how dirty. His power-hungry nature allows him to rise to the top as he becomes the criminal kingpin of Gotham City.
But I forgive
them. Penguin forgives parents. I'm fully at peace with myself.
Since the Golden Age, the Penguin has been a mainstay villain to oppose Batman. He has worked alongside the Joker and Catwoman, and is known for his strange personality quirks and bird-like features. However, there is a reason for his affinity with birds, and there is also a reason why he is always driven by negative emotions, such as anger and vengeance. Despite his villainous nature, Penguin shows flashes of compassion from time to time. He has a particular fondness for his mother as well. In this video, we are going to talk about the origin story that has made Penguin the way he is, and also talk about some of his arcs, powers, and appearances in popular media. Most villains do not become criminals overnight. They often have a backstory, or rather, a villain origin story, that is sad enough to make the enemy sympathize with them. That does not excuse their behavior, of course, but it does give us a lot more insight into the characters and their motives. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. Penguin's traumatizing origin. In most origin stories, Penguin hails from an aristocratic family, and yet his life is extremely rough from the very beginning. Following his birth, his mother placed him in his father's arms, but his father took one look at his face and dropped him on his head. Oswald's unfortunate facial features were to blame for that. Oswald was loved by his mother. His father, however, held a polarizing belief towards his objectively unattractive child. In fact, he wouldn't even let Oswald on the bed he shared with his wife, and kept him near the foot of the bed, as if he were a domesticated animal. Oswald's short stature, distinctive nose, and stout appearance were to blame. He grew older and had brothers, but this only made things worse. Similar to their father, his brothers also looked at him with disgust. He was constantly teased and bullied by other kids as well. His nose was compared to that of a bird, and they would tie his hands and legs to monkey bars, making him look like a bird hanging midair. When he would use the restroom, the kids at his school would bust him and say, "The penguin is laying an egg." And all of these experiences made childhood terrible for young Oswald. Once, he had created an aviary by himself, which was raided by the school bullies and his sibling. They tore down the nests and cracked every egg on the floor, while poor Oswald could do nothing but watch in horror. The only friends Oswald had were other animals. Due to feeling secluded from a society that judged him by his appearance and tormented him, he would spend his time feeding the wild birds that visited his greenhouse. He eventually adopted Penguin as his moniker, even though it was a term that was used to bully him, because penguins are uncomfortable and clumsy in incompatible environments, but can adapt depending on the situation. Oswald found it to be a fitting name. Penguins could also be swift and decisive when threatened, which Oswald embraced. As a man who has been looked down upon and tormented since his birth, Penguin went on to harbor a lot of negative feelings within himself. His siblings, Jason, Robert, and William, died not long after. His father, Tucker Cobblepot, also passed away from pneumonia, and now Oswald was the sole heir to the Cobblepot legacy. His mother, whom he cared for, could not take the trauma of losing 3 of her sons and her husband and became catatonic. Penguin lived his life feeling like an outcast. Rage took over him, and with vengeance on his mind, he sought revenge on his bullies. When he was being bothered by a group of prom queens, he set loose a small host of magpies on them. However, this turned out to make things worse for him as they beat him up with bats. He got home, wounded and bleeding. He then went to check on his adopted pets, but one of them bit him. This enraged him further as he considered the animals to be his best friends. He beat the pet to death in a fit of rage. He graduated school and used his family's fortune to set up the Iceberg Lounge, a socialite club. Being an outcast in society from the start, he turned to a life of crime working as an illegal boxing promoter and a criminal on the black markets of Gotham. As a criminal in Gotham, he was destined to face Batman one day, and Penguin found himself on the opposite side of the Dark Knight quite a number of times. A notable ornament carried by Penguin is his umbrella, which has its own backstory. After his father died of pneumonia, Penguin's mother made him carry an umbrella at all times so that he could protect himself from the rain and not catch a cold bad enough to die. It eventually became his cane, with which he used to walk, but it was also a sheath for his hidden blade. However, this proves that despite growing up in the worst of circumstances, Penguin still got attention from his mother. Despite being fueled by rage and the lust for revenge, Penguin always harbored a soft corner for her. Major story arcs. As Penguin is a very prominent villain who has opposed Batman, he has appeared in several arcs. The Joker's Asylum, the Penguin finds a prostitute named Veronica. She was caged at the black market. Having had a hard life himself, Penguin sympathized with her and took her in. Eventually, he began to fall for her. However, he ordered a series of murders during one of his rageful episodes out of jealousy. On learning about this, Veronica began to despise him. In the end, Penguin took her back to the black market and put her back in the cage he had gotten her from. War games. During one of Gotham's large-scale gang wars, Penguin stays away from the frontline action. He works behind the scenes, selling weapons and supervillains such as the Electrocutioner and Firefly to the gangs. Batman sends in Tarantula to take down Penguin's bodyguard, Deadshot. Penguin is threatened to leave Gotham, and he heads to Bloodhaven. However, he would return to Gotham frequently to tend to his socialite club, the Iceberg Lounge. Unresolved. In the Gotham Central story, Harvey Bullock breaks into the Iceberg Lounge and accuses Penguin of hiring the Mad Hatter for annihilating the 1996 Gotham Hawks championship team. However, Harvey is arrested instead, where he tells the detectives about Penguin's involvement in the situation, as he had allegedly lost a huge bet that involved the Hawks team. When Harvey returns, he takes Penguin hostage and threatens to throw him off the roof. In the end, he is knocked unconscious after the detectives talk Harvey out of killing Penguin. Infinite Crisis. The Penguin appeared in Infinite Crisis briefly during the Battle of Metropolis, which was started by the secret society of supervillains. 1 year later, several of Penguin's men were killed while he was away from Gotham. Harvey Dent was framed for the murders when it was Great White who was involved in the wrongdoings. Great White wanted to weaken his competition as he wanted Gotham's criminal syndicate, due to which the Penguin fell under his radar. When Penguin returns, he reopens the Iceberg Lounge after claiming to have given up his stint as a criminal. He even urges the Riddler to avoid crime as he had found a more lucrative and legal venture, selling overpriced Penguin merchandise. Gotham Underground. Batman hires Penguin to get access to his criminal contacts in Gotham. Meanwhile, Penguin is involved in a gang war with Intergang and Tobias Whale. He loses the war as well as Batman's support, causing him to lose out on his social position. Where is Batman? Brightest day. Oswald has lost his mantle as Gotham's crime boss, so he seeks out Johnny Stitches to get back Iceberg Lounge. However, his stake in Gotham's Underground is threatened by Black Mask. Penguin joins forces with Mad Hatter and they manipulate Dick Grayson's Batman to enforce them. Black Mask is revealed to be Jeremiah Arkham, so Penguin enlists the aid of White Canary, Creote, and Savant to destroy the birds of prey. Following the events An enraged Huntress swears revenge against Penguin for being involved in a murder attempt against her teammates. During a hectic night at Iceberg Lounge, which was closed due to renovation, he loses his cool at a waitress. He tries to hit her, but Hank Hall chimes in to stop him. Oswald is apparently roughed up, as he is then seen in pajamas late at night trying to loot local convenience stores under orders from Bedbug. Batman, Dark Knight. Batman infiltrates the Boom Room and finds a necklace that belonged to Don Golden, his childhood crush. However, it was a trap set up by Penguin to capture Batman. Batman overpowers Penguin's security and interrogates Penguin, who refuses to budge. Batman is attacked by other members of the security who wielded high-tech weapons, allowing Penguin to escape. And yet, Batman catches up to him and beats him, demanding answers to his questions. Killer Croc escapes police custody and attacks Batman, knocking him out. He awakens to being tied to a support beam with a television in front of him. Penguin appears on screen and mocks Batman, saying that Don Golden will not last long as the heat in her room is increasing. Turns out, Penguin harbored vengeance against her as she had mocked his appearance, like his bullies from the past. Batman gets out of the room immediately, and it explodes and searches for Dawn. He finds her in the basement and heads out after freeing her. Meanwhile, Penguin is seen interacting with a demon who is disappointed with his failures, as he failed to open the gates of hell by sacrificing Don Golden. Batman, Gates of Gotham. Dick Grayson cleans up after a bridge from the 1800s, built by the Waynes, Cobblepots, and the Elliots, explodes. He then gets a tip about Penguin smuggling 100 pounds of Simtex, which is a plastic explosive, to Gotham, as he had a potential buyer. He meets Commissioner Barbara Gordon, who tells him about the Gotham Gazette's chief editor receiving a mysterious note that stated, "Families will fall by the gates of Gotham." He heads to interrogate Penguin and learns that Penguin had sold the Simtex to someone who used Oswald's ancestor's name as an alias and wore a strange costume. Iceberg Lounge reopens, and Cassandra and Tim notice people fleeing from the club. Penguin seems to have discovered a bomb in his office, as the perpetrator of the bridge explosion bore a grudge against the Cobblepots. Tim fails at disarming it, and the Iceberg Lounge blows up, causing Penguin to find himself in utter disappointment. Seems like this man's life is riddled with misery after misery. Penguin, Pain, and Prejudice. While leaving the Iceberg Lounge, Oswald bumps into a patron who insults him. After recognizing who he was, he apologizes profusely, and Penguin lets it slide. He asks his men to steal a dragon egg, Ruby, from Barbara Chantel, a socialite from Gotham. They ambush and decapitate her to fetch the ruby, which Oswald intends to give his mother as a gift for Mother's Day. He then calls upon the man who had insulted him and claims that even though he will not harm him, he cannot say the same for his loved ones. He burns down the man's building. They cause the man's parents to get involved in an accident and make his girlfriend Jenny overdose on heroin. In the end, he gives the man a gun with a bullet and asks him to go outside to kill himself instead of staining the carpets with blood. New 52. Detective Comics, Faces of Death. Penguin tries to take criminal territories and wipe out low-end criminals, but his plans are foiled by Batman after he blows up innocent people and causes the death of Charlotte Rivers. Dark Knight, Cycle of Violence. An employee steals a painting of Penguin's mother. He interrogates him when Scarecrow walks in. Penguin turns him into a blimp to emit super fear toxin 451A all over Gotham. Death of the Family. Penguin goes to a church to meet some criminals, but they are found dead in a praying position. He then comes across Joker, who refers to crime as religion and asks Penguin to join hands with him. When Batman goes to catch Joker, he finds Penguin with Two-Face and Riddler, dressed up in medieval period costume. Their hostages were dressed like the Justice League, and Joker asks Batman to sit on an electric chair, otherwise the hostages would be killed. However, Joker betrays the others and traps Penguin and the others behind bars after completing his plan.
Us even knew the shipment was going out last night.
Well, someone did.
How dangerous is the Penguin? Penguin is easily one of Batman's most intelligent villains, equaling the likes of the Riddler. He rose up to the top in Gotham's underworld as a superb criminal mastermind. His excellence with planning allows him to turn any situation in his favor. He also has a love for ornithology and carries technology-fitted umbrellas, the latter being prevalent from his very character design. Powers and abilities. Penguin does not possess any superpowers, so his abilities rely upon his high-end intelligence. Genius-level intellect. Ever since his childhood, Penguin was not blessed in the physical department, be it his appearance or his athleticism. As a result, he had to rely on a sharp intellect for the longest time. However, his brain always takes a sinister route, even if the decision needed to be made takes place in a very mundane scenario.
I am Oswald Cobblepot.
Business management. Oswald excels at business management, something that can be noted from the way he carries out his criminal operation. In fact, all of his operations were likely to be a raging success, but Batman foiling his plans obviously does not work out in his favor. He has gone against the law and cooperated with the law to make money, with Iceberg Lounge being a legitimate nightclub, while drugs were illegitimately sold there under the table. Leadership. Penguin is often seen around his henchmen. In fact, he travels with them for every criminal mission, or even for mundane activities like going to the zoo. He has bodyguards, servants, chefs, villains, and several gang members under his control, and he is only able to amass such a crowd due to his leadership qualities.
Actually, this is all just a bad dream.
Avian Trainer. Considering his close relationship with birds since a very young age, Penguin has great knowledge about them and excels at being an avian trainer, which benefits him in his criminal as well as personal endeavors. He has a special kinship with the African penguin.
You're just jealous because I'm a genuine freak.
Hand-to-hand combat. Advanced. Penguin has spent quite some time learning martial arts to overpower the people who have insulted his appearance. He is a master at boxing and judo. Cold tolerance. Penguins can tolerate freezing temperatures a lot longer than the average person. He has good resistance to hypothermia and frostbite. However, he does not have a superhuman tolerance for sub-freezing temperatures like Mr. Freeze, and his ability is just on the far end of the regular human's cold tolerance. Tactical analysis. As a crime lord, Penguin has great tactical analysis, which aids him against his opponents.
My baby!
Weaknesses. Obsession. Despite having several plus points, Penguin's major weakness lies in his obsession with committing crimes with bird motifs and avian themes, which was predominant during the early stages of his career. This also made it easier to figure out whether he is involved in a crime or not, putting him at a disadvantage. It is understandable that he did it to gain a name and prominence in society, considering how he spent his life as a social outcast. Instead of being an object of ridicule, he could now be a threat. Paraphernalia. Weapons. Trick umbrellas. The Penguin is characterized by his usage of trick umbrellas. He uses an assortment of this weapon, often as a hidden blade. Some of his umbrellas have flight abilities due to motorization, which helps him with his escapades in narrow situations. Now, if we talk about the threat he poses, Penguin has a decent arsenal of feats up his sleeve that makes him quite the menace for the Dark Knight. Let's explore some of these moments. Murdered the Waynes. This is not canon in DC's mainstream universe, where Thomas and Martha Wayne were killed by muggers. However, in Batman Earth 1 comic series, the writers of DC have explored an alternate scenario where Oswald Cobblepot is responsible for ordering a hit to murder the Waynes. So, even without pulling the trigger, He is as responsible as Joe Chill for creating Batman, since he is the puppeteer pulling the strings behind the scenes. By doing this, Penguin was able to amass a lot of political power in Gotham now that the Waynes were dead. Manipulated someone to the point of suicide. Penguin has used his malicious intellect to manipulate the life of one of his chefs, causing him to commit suicide. The chef had once laughed at his direction, not at him, just at his direction. Penguin, traumatized by being laughed at since birth, took it personally and made the chef's life as miserable as he could. In the end, the chef could not handle the pressure and ended up killing himself. Penguin's trauma is understandable, but his subsequent actions are way out of pocket. All that money, and he still does not go for therapy. Got romantically involved with a real Penguin. Penguin and Bane were involved in a mutual plan to take down Batman and reign over Gotham. However, after Bane betrays Penguin by killing his beloved Penny, Penguin switches sides and tries to join hands with Batman. He also reveals how Bane was secretly running his shenanigans from Arkham Asylum. When Penguin talks about his love for Penny, people believe that it might be a woman he has fallen for. However, while revealing some details about her, he mentions Penny having feathers and a beak, which causes the audience to think that he is romantically interested in a real penguin named Penny. As gross as this may sound, this has never been confirmed officially.
My recipe for pigeon pie.
Tried to kill Jim Gordon's wife. John Paul Valley's Batman took the spotlight during Batman Comics' Nightfall era. Penguin played a rather small role during this time, but he used the little attention to cement his position as a super manipulative villain that plagues Gotham. He turns himself in after getting Commissioner Gordon's wife kidnapped. He then taunts Gordon and rubs salt on the wound by pointing out his incapability in finding his wife. Batman shows up after finding her, so all is good, but Penguin had managed to get under Gordon's skin by that time. Abandoned his son Ethan. As someone who has had a horrible relationship with his father, you would expect Penguin to not repeat it and try to be a decent father. But that does not happen when Penguin is shown to have a son in his mid-20s named Ethan. In one of Batgirl's storylines, we learn that Ethan tries his best to keep his distance from Penguin, not because his father is a criminal, but because Penguin had abandoned him immediately after his birth. Ethan only got his father's financial support. Ethan reveals his evil plans to Penguin, hoping to bond with his criminal father, but his advances are rejected until Penguin sees Ethan's potential and decides to use it for his own benefit. Daddy issues.
I got you! I got you!
Colin Farrell's casting as the Penguin, and Matt Reeves, the Batman, 2022. Matt Reeves, the Batman, starring Robert Pattinson as Bruce Wayne or Batman, Zoe Kravitz as Selina Kyle or Catwoman, and Paul Dano as the Riddler, in one of 2022's most highly anticipated releases. Penguin will also be making an appearance in the movie, albeit not in a very prominent role, but it still has fans from all across the world excited. The character will be portrayed by Colin Farrell. Initially, this decision raised a lot of eyebrows, and of course, it would be hard for anyone to walk the same path as the likes of Burgess Meredith or Danny DeVito, who have both played Penguin in the past and knocked it out of the park. Recently, new images from the Batman have been circulating on the internet, where we get to see Colin decked up in his Penguin attire. The getup is quite accurate to the comics, which makes us more excited to see what's about to come. Trailers and exclusive clips from the movie have also been released before, and yet we are still under the rock when it comes to where the plot should go.
Whoa, take it easy, sweetheart.
So, it's hard to say how Penguin will tie up with the plot. With the Riddler being one of the more prominent characters in the movie, it is likely that Farrell's Penguin will be tied to the Riddler in terms of storyline. Farrell has confirmed the Penguin does not hog much of the screen time, with only 9 minutes under his wing in a movie that is longer than 2 hours. To maintain continuity in the verse, Penguin might appear quite late into the movie as an introductory character, which will be expanded in future Batman films. DC went through a rough patch with its cinematic universes, especially with the DCEU, with Colin Farrell's Penguin looking comic accurate and Robert Pattinson's Batman being promising. Matt Reeves, the Batman, has a likelihood to make it big. creative and terrifying versions of Penguin in various forms of media explored. Since Penguin is a very popular villain, he has appeared in several forms of media beyond the comics, be it films, television, animated series, or video games. Films. Burgess Meredith played Penguin in the 1966 live-action movie Batman, directed by Leslie H. Martinson. Here, Penguin appeared alongside other notorious Batman villains such as the Joker, Catwoman, and the Riddler. Penguin and the other villains try to outsmart the Dark Knight in the movie, but ultimately fail. Meredith's performance went on to garner praise from the critics as well as the audience, which brings us to 1992's Batman Returns. Directed by Tim Burton, we get to see Danny DeVito step into the role of the Penguin and pull it off with nothing but sheer excellence. He also has a very different origin story. He was born with a deformed body that gave him hands like flippers. He gets abandoned by his rich parents and thrown into the sewers. The penguins of the zoo take up the responsibility of raising him. Wonder how he learned English.
This is the most fantastical gimmick.
Television. The 1960s had a Batman live-action television series where Burgess Meredith played Penguin. 2014, Robin Lord Taylor took over the role when he appeared in the Fox television series Gotham, a story set in a timeline that follows Gotham right after the murders of Thomas and Martha Wayne. Taylor has a prominent role with Oswald Cobblepot, who has just begun his journey and is set to be the Penguin in the future. His left leg takes a hit following a revenge assault, from where he gets his trademark waddle limp. Anytime anyone compared his walk to that of a penguin, great anger took over Taylor's Penguin.
Who says penguins can't fly?
Animation. He also appears in the 1980s animated series Super Friends, where he is played by Frank Weller. Paul Williams voices him in the iconic Batman the Animated Series and The New Batman Adventures. Tom Kenny voices him in The Batman, and Stephen Root voices him in Batman the Brave and the Bold.
Help me.
Video games. Penguin also makes his appearance in several video games such as Batman Arkham Asylum and Batman Arkham City. Presently, fans are excited to see him in the upcoming live-action Batman movie by Matt Reeves. What do you think of the Penguin? Did you enjoy this video? If yes, then don't forget to like and comment on the video. Till then, goodbye, and have a nice one.